got problems, you should be rejoicing because there's signs of life.
Yeah.
Don't knock on my door on Monday morning. The tragedy was, for the next 3 months, no one knocked on my door. The insight I got was, you can do things, but you need to prepare.
Nice.
Well, I think Pop has been running other questions. I think let's go around the table for the fundamental question, which is what makes you optimistic. That's the core of the work of the centre. As I looked at what Bill Gates and Steven Pinker and Rose and others are doing, they give these big statistics. That we've defeated world poverty, that we've defeated polio, we've halved the rate of malaria death, all of these great statistics. But in everyone's lives, there's tragedy. Whether it's worrying about whether you're going to lose your job, whether it's
your wife, bushfires.
All of these things. So the question we ask is what makes you optimistic? And Martin Seligman, who's the king of positive psychology, this is one of those God moments. This guy rang me from Brazil and said, I've been telling Seligman about you. He says he wants to see you. So I sent an email to his secretary to say, look, I'll come to Philadelphia, and no answer. 4 weeks later, who should be walking down the corridor to me in Melbourne? Martin Seligman himself.
Wow.
And I stopped him and I said, look, Pedro said that we should meet. Can I come and see you in Philadelphia? He said, you'll never get past my secretary. Let's talk now. And if you look at the top of my Twitter, you see his answer to the question, what makes you optimistic? And what he said to me is, you've nailed 40 years of positive psychology research. And the only thing he would have added, because his latest book is called Hope. He said, what makes you optimistic? What gives you hope? So, optimism, the best definition of optimism is the Harvard-Stanford one, that it's a belief that things will work out in the end. Right? It's not a belief that there's a silver lining in every dark cloud. As you said, shit happens. Right? And bad things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. But the optimist believes that if you persist, things will work out in the end, that the good things will happen. And Stanford, the American military, and Boston University produced a report 8 weeks ago now that said that the key factor in longevity to live a healthy life beyond the age of 85 is not genetics, it's not geography, it's optimism. And the scientists were amazed by the result. A week later, I think they just got their timing on, Mount Sinai Hospital came out with a report that said the key indicator against the development of heart disease is, again, not genetics or geography, it's optimism. And that's a study of 200,000 people. And the guy that ran the study was just amazed himself. He expected it to be blood, he expected it to be all sorts of things, but it proved to be optimism. So the question we're going around the table on is what makes you optimistic? What makes you believe that things will work out in the end, that good things will happen? And Charles, do you want to start?
My passion, because my passion is, if I have energy and I'm coming from my heart space, right, it enables me to solve any problem. Things will work out. The second most crucial thing is this. I have decided what the meaning of life is. And therefore, things do work out because I have decided, and my second book, Passion and Performance, talks about this, that the purpose of life is to learn and grow. So it's not possible that life doesn't work out, because you can learn and grow from whatever happens. So I go, wow, what an amazing gift. That's why I'm optimistic. The other thing I want to share that you talked about on health, and Theo, when you talked about the subtitle to the second book is balancing mental, physical, spiritual. That's what you do, mind, body, spirit. The Hungarian word, and I just wonder what other languages you know, Latvian, do you speak Latvian? So in Hungarian, the word for health is egészség, and that literally means wholeness, being whole. So mind, body, spirit. If you have mental problems, you wouldn't call yourself healthy, would you? If you have spiritual problems, lack of optimism, you wouldn't call yourself healthy. So it ties in beautifully. What's the Latvian word for health and literal?
The Estonian word is closer to Hungarian.
Okay, yeah, but anyway, so wholeness, being whole. Anyway, that's what.
But that's the English word as well, of healing. whole. The old English word of whole
Yeah, it's here.
means
Became
whole,
yes,
wholeness.
and that became
So
health.
and that
It
became
became
health,
healed.
healing.
Nice.
To make
Good.
whole is to
Yes.
heal.
Beautiful.
So
And the
it's,
Greek word
the healing is
or health.
We have a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
the newest person who's answered the question on the website.
And thank you so much for posting on Twitter. You're very kind. And so I've had the gift of being able to actually contemplate this a little bit this morning. And so when I was thinking about optimism, the thing that came to my mind was freedom. The freedom that we choose to embrace and that empowers us to change our current situation to be whatever it can be. And I know that not everyone in the world has freedoms to change politics, the political environment, or to change their family income environment, but we do have the freedom to change our mindset about what's going on. So at the very least, optimism for me is freedom.
Well, just like each new day is a new beginning to create something amazing, if you've got the right mindset, you can do anything and you can meet amazing people or, have a great encounter or learn something new.
Cool.
Well, I'd probably reflect what Eloise said. It's our source of optimism. And around my whole family, I understand we can do it.
It's a great feeling, isn't it? I can do anything. Like John, that's a great John Farnham song, by the way. I can do anything. I recommend it.
Well, I'm optimistic because of history. You talked before about everything will be all right in the end. There's another saying that says everything will be all right in the end. If it isn't all right, it isn't the end. and over life, I see that as a truism. Like Charles, I'm going to live to 120 because I can see that there are things that are just going to be so interesting and so good to live through. And I'm optimistic that in spite of the doomsayers, we will get through it and it will be better.
On the day I was born, Winston Churchill was celebrating his 70th birthday. That was in 1944, so the war was on. I got through that. I got through the Cuba blockade. I got through the assassination of Kennedy. I got through a lot of things in life. My wife died 4 years ago, and I didn't think I'd get through that, but I got through it. So I'm optimistic that I have the potential. And as long as there's no interference, I'm optimistic that I'm going to have a good life going forward. That makes me optimistic.
Yeah, my wife passed away a few years ago as well, so I've been quite resilient through that, and I think having space is important for me, maybe as a Capricorn, as well as being with inspiring people. Because I think there are people that you meet that try and bring you down. There's a lot of that goes on, so it certainly challenges the optimism part that I have in me when you have people like that. So a bit of a balancing act for me. But to be on the positive side, it's that space plus inspiring people.
And the beautiful line, just in terms of your maths that you learnt in grade 2, of adding, of people either add to you, multiply you, subtract you from you, or divide you.
Well, I like that.
It's a lovely model of those four, anyway.
Quite simply, I have a fundamental belief in possible.
Before you spoke about the feeling of hope, for me it's that feeling of hope. I think as long as there's still that feeling that things can get better, that there's an opportunity for this to be a bit different, as long as that feeling still exists, then there's optimism about the potential of what that could be. So for me it's very much that feeling of hope.
In the window there is a quote from Professor G, who's Professor of Neuroscience at Melbourne University. And her quote, she took 14 months to answer my question. And overnight she woke up with the revelation. And her quote on the window there is, optimism is the evidence of dreams not yet realised.
Oh, wow.
And the more you think about that one, it just
That's great.
becomes
Colourful.
it says everything. Although in fact my Twitter post with her has this black slide and she's got black hair and a black sweater, so all you see is this beautiful Korean face through the black. with this
Can I
quote.
just add, Victor, it's interesting because everyone knows Pandora's box, everyone talks about Pandora's box and what's going to happen, but the last thing out of Pandora's box is hope.
Yeah.
People forget that. That's everything that comes out of Pandora's box is, you know, pestilence and all this sort of stuff. But the last thing out of it is hope.
But you see, Seligman in his book Hope, it's quite interesting. At the age of nearly 80, he says my original research was wrong. The science of optimism over the last 10 years, you know, the ability to actually be able to get hormones from the brain, the ability to use the MRI to watch the brain actually in performance. He says his original research was wrong, and the thing we have to work on is exactly what you say, is self-mastery. And he titled his book Hope. You know, it's all about our self-mastery, so you would say discipline.
If I could just add a
Of
little
course.
bit of a personal anecdote, my mum's passed away and she was relatively healthy, and then a brain tumour was found and they basically said, yeah, sorry, palliative care for you. She was dead half an hour later.
Wow.
So
The brain, the mind.
so that whole, for her, that was a death sentence, and she made it true. So she lost hope that there would be any future.
Great
And so
example.
that's a real, like, and I think also the power of the brain. My mum was like, hell's no am I going into palliative care. That's it, I'm out, I'm signed out, I'm done. Bye.
Wow.
How liberating.
Well, it was for her, it's a little bit difficult when
Yes, and I don't
family
mean that
member,
in any critical perspective, but for her, it's a sense of where she wants to be
Oh yeah.
and where she sees a potential future.
Yeah. So but yeah.
BJ.
Cool. I said, I don't think I'm an optimist, right, initially. So, and maybe I want to hear your definition again of optimism, Victor.
So the definition, so the best definition is that it's a belief that things will work out in the end, that good things will happen.
Yeah.
So it's not this Pollyanna notion, you know, everything's wonderful, or Anne of Green Gables, you know, everything's a smile. Although the evidence is that smiling at strangers lifts everyone, but it's a belief that things will work out in the end. And Shimon Peres, the Israeli Prime Minister, put it very well. He said, we all end up in the same place, dead, but I choose to be an optimist. and the Dalai Lama puts it well. The Dalai Lama says, choose optimism, it feels better.
Nice.
And the Pope, I think Archbishop Pell was helping with his early speeches, because he made a number of speeches in which he disparaged optimism. He said faith and hope are the critical things, a belief that God will look after us, and optimism is just this man-made thing. Speech he made last month to the youth of Vietnamese said, go forward with optimism. Now, I have written 5 letters to him, I don't know if they get through to him.
Well done.
But even the Prime Minister opened up this year with an essay on optimism. So we've got to keep persisting. So
Optimism in his abilities.
yeah, so the reason I asked the question, what makes you optimistic, not are you optimistic, is that even the pessimist can find things. So when I ask a woman digging a ditch in India, what makes her optimistic, oftentimes they say God or family. You know, and it varies across societies quite a lot. So I just stop people in the street. And there was one bloke in India, big American guy, and you know, we just sit like this, and I said, how are things? He said, a bit like you. He said, shit house. I don't like India, I've got a rotten belly, I hate the people I work with. He's in train engineering. Anyway, I gave him the 5-minute pep talk on optimism, and we both went on our ways. The next morning, I heard this huge voice bellowing, Vance, Vance! And he didn't remember my name, but he remembered the feeling I gave him. And he came back to me and he said, I thought about what you said, and you've changed my entire view of working in India.
Love it.
So you don't have to be optimistic to find something that makes you optimistic. But if you don't want to answer the question, it's not compulsory.
No, I just want to answer the question, but I thought I'll clarify
Yeah,
this
so
because
it's a belief that things will work out in the end, or that good things will happen.
To me, the reason why I think I'm not optimist, or where I probably lack understanding of what optimism is, I don't talk that, I can't do this. I always say, I can do it. If that makes me optimist, I'm not sure. The reason is, if I want to reach something at the end, I know if I put my heart and mind and work hard, I can do that. So that makes it optimist, means I'm optimist. But what I do is I just break that into multiple smaller chunks, and I put my effort in thinking about how am I going to reach each of those steps before I reach the end goal, right? So this is where I'm not sure that I'm optimist, because I'm spending a lot of time thinking and working on this, right? Which makes someone looking at outside think, why is this guy sitting down in a room or by himself trying to think over this? And to me, that means I'm not optimist from their perspective, right? Because I'm spending a lot of time, maybe an introvert, if you could say, putting effort into it, and probably not, if you said optimist is, people like to be with optimists because they are kind of extrovert, So this is where I'm not sure whether I'm an optimist, because I think positive, I talk positive, but I spend a lot of time, thinking about how am I going to achieve that.
So Saint, one of the saints that's in my book talks about Christian optimism as being hard work. Right? It's not sugary, it's not Pollyannaish, it's bloody hard work. Mick Farrell, who I often quote on this, is the head of ResMed. Who knows Mick Farrell?
Mick
Farrell. The
son of Peter.
I call Mick Farrell the best marriage counsellor in the world. What product does he make?
Hearing aids.
No. Snoring machines. Snoring machines. So the company started with $1 million in Australia, and it's now worth $26 billion.
What does he make?
Snoring machines. CPAP. And he was one of the first people to get to give me a quote on the whole project. He says, you have to be an optimist to be in this business, but it's an optimism grounded in reality. That's why we're so strong on realistic and infectiously optimistic leadership. A good strategy, a good business plan, a good ownership plan. And in fact, most of the work we do in terms of the workshops when corporate seek us out is on to run strategy for them. Because the big four, the PwCs, the Deloittes now, produce negative scenarios. Climate change is going to stuff us, or the greediness of teenagers is going to stuff us. It's extraordinary. The last time I saw a Deloitte scenario panel, every option was bad. How can you write a strategy if you think the world's going to be worse? How can your enterprise be better at the end? So what do you say? We can talk at length about this. Being introverted, being scientific, strategy, business plan, plan, doesn't make you a pessimist. It makes you a realist and well-prepared.
Pragmatic.
Yeah, and it's not a bad space to be in, because at least you're curious about it, so you're looking for the answers, and that's a good place to be anyway.
Yeah, IT is big time solutions.
And in fact, John Hagel has joined the board, so he's one of the most distinguished American leadership experts and wrote the book The Power of Pull. But his whole belief, so he runs the Centre for the Edge, and he says it's all about questions. It's all about the questions you ask about, will it work, etc.
But maybe it's a stereotype though in the media, whatever, the optimist is the spin doctor, the positive out there.
Well, because the media is so negative.
Going on here. Yeah.
The journalists are so pessimistic now that the ABC News is now 98% negative. There are journalists quitting because they're filing stories and not getting them published because they're positive.
And I wonder if you look at Mother Teresa, you wouldn't call her an extrovert. She certainly was about the connection between people one-on-one. Yet to me, she would be one of the strongest optimists. Because what drove her was the optimism of the human spirit.
Well, Dalai Lama as well is perhaps the same. He was very quiet and spoken and so on.
And she was from Albania. Everyone thinks she was Indian, She's actually from Albania, but she wasn't Indian.
And also with that whole thing as well, Brené Brown. She does so many talks to Silicon Valley CEOs about vulnerability, creativity, which then gives you optimism, but they're saying innovation can't happen without optimism. So the CEOs that are business billionaires, they rely on their workers to be optimistic, to tap into innovation, so they can better tackle the strategies, meet goals, innovate, create better systems. So, I think
I don't
it's just
think
been
you need to
portrayed.
do a bachelor degree. I think you just have to spend time here.
I think it's just been portrayed. The image of the optimist is like someone that's out with the flowers and whatever,
Dreamer.
but it can also be a business suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the image of the public that doesn't think of an optimist as a business person, but that's not true.
Yeah. And Iger, the head of Disney, who just published his autobiography, has 10 principles of good leadership. What's the top one? Infectious optimism.
Oh, infectious.
So that Dominic Barton, the head of McKinsey, said to me, every good leader he's ever met is infectiously optimistic. But it's not the Pollyanna, my company's going brilliantly and you should be inspired as one of my workers. It's the person who can unlock the optimism in the team.
I just had an idea, if you don't mind, it's about the ABC, you might not hold them, but you could approach maybe Q&A to have a session with yourself as the lead and others on optimism.
We should do that. The current thing I'm
It's an idea coming
the thing I'm
online.
promoting at the moment is the optimism debate. So Ted and I think are doing this in Hong Kong.
not thinking.
Where one team debates the case for optimism
Oh, okay.
and the other team debates the case for even more optimism. Walter, what makes you optimistic?
I consider myself a very optimistic person, so I see the positive things in almost everything. I'm a Christian, so I believe that all things work together for good. But my history, I think that's where I started becoming optimist when I was in the military academy. And it was because I have no other choice but to be optimistic. So I went to the military academy because I needed to get a scholarship, free education, career in the military as a general or whatever. But it was very hard. I got into the military as like 98 pounds, so very thin, weak. But I had to believe that I'm going to finish at the end because there was no choice.
No choice.
No choice for me. I had to think of my life one day at a time. Sometimes I running and doing a program with full pack and with rifle, and then I see the thief there. Maybe I should just fall over and be in hospital and be have a rest. But I might die, so I have to do something. I have to just go ahead one step at a time. So anyway, I finished the whole 4 years, and it was really hard work. But what I was saying is, I needed to achieve that goal at the end, and I didn't have a choice but to be optimistic that my senior officers or senior cadets were not going to kill me. And in the academy, there's some history of people dying because of hazing and things like that. But I got through anyway. But maybe that was the start of me being just optimistic about anything. It's very hard, but I'm going to get through to this.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Nice.
I think what makes me optimistic is seeing people come together, because I feel that that's a huge problem. Human connection. I think people are terrified of each other. So even with like these bushfires, and I don't watch TV at all, so I just get my information from everyone else. But it's so touching that everybody's, everyone's got each other's back. In very simple terms. Like that is inspiring. That's optimistic that people can come together and help each other, because I don't feel we do. Like I would even go to the extreme of saying it's the opposite, like kicking all this down kind of, and there's a lot of that in the world. And so when people come together and help from pure, connection, that inspires me, really inspires me.
Like Charles said, it's that worthy ideal, though, isn't it? The bushfires, people coming together to have better society.
It takes adversity. It takes adversity to bring societies together.
Because we're so we've been pushed so separate. Through religion and through everything, we're just so separate. And the more the governments and everything can do to just separate us is just, disempowering.
Polarisation.
Right, and social media as well. You're not in the camp, you're in the wrong camp. You're not in my camp, you're in the wrong camp. And there is a separation of people in society, rather than accepting different views coming together. And the bushfires are so extreme that regardless of where you come from, you come together.
Yeah.
It takes all of that separation and actually puts that aside,
That's
because
right.
there's a common point
Yeah.
and the common purpose is that's to rebuild or whatever it is from a community perspective. It doesn't matter what colour you are, what language you speak, what food you eat, what thought you have. We're all here about survival.
And maybe it's that Maslow's hierarchy of needs we've chunked
Absolutely,
down.
it's
Lower
stripping.
level.
So the
So,
rule
It's
is-
stripping all of that I guess palaver that's brought around life back to the basic.
We need our food, we need shelter, we need the
Yeah.
three things, the basics of life. We don't need the other things.
So,
We've got them.
We
That's
do.
what brings us
So
together.
the thought there is, because each one of us is a weirdo, it's easy to be separate because there are 7.5 billion weirdos.
Yeah.
Well, we want to
But
be
the
separate.
principle from the Bible is this: when one thing unites us, it overcomes all the things that divide us.
Yeah, finding the commonality instead of the differences.
yeah.
One thing unites us. And actually, it might not be the Bible, because there's another one: without a vision, the people perish.
Yeah.
That's right.
So if there's no vision, then everyone's fighting about crap. But if there's a vision,
Yeah, some
the
American
other classic
president
is
said that.
world. You know, when there's a war, look what happens. Like every country, when a country goes to war, like Second World War, bang, you know, people are all together, aren't they?
Yes.
I think an American president actually said that quote that you said, without something the people perish.
That came from the Old Testament.
Oh, that's right.
But it's
Theo, what makes you optimistic?
What makes me optimistic? I think I like the hard knocks of life. I see it as a challenge. And one of the quotes, I can't even remember who it's from, it's something like, life happens for me, not against me. It happens for me. Everything happens for me. So it's up to me to turn it around and find how I'm going to use this moment. There's like a invitation of creation in this moment.